Hello, this is Dennis Wing from Guitar Lessons Ithaca, and today we're talking about a source of confusion for many guitarists, which is the diminished chord versus the half diminished chord. I'm going to try and simplify it as best I can for you. Now, a diminished chord is 1, flat 3, flat 5. And let's just pause there for a minute. When you have harmonized scale, which is a fancy way of saying you take the notes of a scale and make them into chords like this: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, and then this B diminished thing. Where do you play that? Well, there's a couple options. I mean, you can do this or maybe this, and there's a bunch of other ones, but none of them are that nice. And all the other chords are multiple string, way more than just 3 strings. So it just doesn't sound that great. You finally get to, that chord, and it sounds a little, it sounds too small. It's only 3 strings. So it's not that much fun to play, and it doesn't sound that great. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. If we were to choose to harmonize these chords into 7th chords, so up here is 1, 3, 5, and down here is simply 1, 3, 5, 7. Then you see that the last chord, it comes out to be B half diminished. This is the symbol for B half diminished. And another way of saying half diminished is the minor 7 flat 5. This chord happens to be much easier and sounds better than this chord in this context of the harmonized scale. So we're going to simply plug this chord in to right here. Even if we're not going to harmonize the rest of this out into 7ths, we're going to just use that because it's so much easier on guitar. And so it'll sound like this: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B half diminished to C. Much nicer than trying to play B diminished triad. Now, how do you play that on guitar? Just like with bar chords, you can find the root at the 5th string and make a chord, or at the 6th string and make a chord. In this particular case, the fingering looks like this. I would go finger 1, then 3, then 2, then 4. On the middle 4 strings, the frets are 2, 3, 2, 3. I'll show you that up close. It looks like this. And that's a B half diminished chord. The other way of playing it is when the root is at the 6th string. And in this particular case, when we find B at the 6th string, we're at fret 7. So there's no fret numbers on here because these chords can be moved to any key. But right now we're in the key of B. So if you go to the 7th fret with your 2nd finger, and then fingers 3 and 4 take the same fret strings, 4 and 3, and then finger 1 takes this. It sounds like this. So whether you're this or this, those are 2 chords well worth memorizing. And in a moment, we're going to do the famous song that has the diminished chord in it. But if you were to play the harmonized scale with those chords in it, let's use this one first, right? So if you were to play C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, and then B half diminished right there, and then back to C. Another way to do it is to use this guy, right? If you're using, let's say, bar chords, and you're at 3rd fret, let's say, and you play all bar chords, then there's your B half diminished on the 6th string. Okay, so let's go back to our chart. So I gave you an example of a chord, a half diminished chord whose root is C, and the notes would be C, E flat, G flat, and B flat. And as you can see, we added a B flat note, the flat 7, to the note C, and changed this diminished triad into a half diminished 7th chord. So let's put this in a progression real quick. Let's play A minor for 2 bars. Minus means minor here. And then B, remember this symbol means half diminished. So B minor 7 flat 5, and then E 7. Right? If we do that, because if you're going to use an open A minor chord, then the nearest B note on the 5th or 6th string is the one on the 5th fret, the 5th string, 2nd fret. So we're going to use this guy right here. And so it'll sound like this: 2, 3, play along with me. And then B half diminished, E 7. Now, you could also play that same chord progression up here and do a bar chord on A minor at the 5th fret. And now the nearest B note is at the 7th fret, this shape. And then maybe you do the E7. You could do that in a bunch of different ways, but you're going to target the root on, for the E7, you're going to target the 7th fret of the 5th string. Either maybe like this, like a C shape, like a C7 shape, or a A7 shape. But that would sound like this: 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's our half diminished chord. You should memorize those two chords. Those are all you really need. If you never memorize any more half diminished chords than that, you'll probably never need to, unless you get into jazz guitar. Now, the next type of chord is the diminished 7 chord. Let's go back to our intervals. The diminished 7 chord has the same 3 notes as a diminished triad. All 3 chords have those 3 notes, but this diminished 7th chord adds a double flat 7. I gave you an example in the key of C. A double flat 7 in the key of C would technically be B double flat, but that's the same note as A. So for simplicity, I just wrote the note A. So the notes C, E flat, G flat, and A make a diminished 7 chord, not to be confused with half diminished. And to note that it's simply adding a double flat 7 to a diminished triad right here. All right. The 2 ways of playing that chord are similar to what we had before, either on the 5th string root or on the 6th string root. If you use, let's keep our example B, except now we're going to play B diminished 7 instead of B half diminished. The fingering would be, I'd use all 4 fingers, like finger 2, then 3, then 1, then 4, from bottom to top. And that's what it sounds like. If you had it on the 7th fret, the B on the 7th fret, it would go, I'd put finger 2, then I'd bar with 1 and play these 2 notes with finger 1. So my fingering from bottom to top would be 2, 1, 3, 1. And it sounds like this. Now, suppose you had a short chord progression of B diminished 7 and then C. If you played the first, if you're going to use like open C or something, or this C down here at the 3rd fret, you could use this B diminished shape right here. And it would go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if you were up, let's say up here for this C at the 8th fret using a bar chord, then the nearest one, the nearest B diminished 7 would be at the 7th fret. And you play this one. So let's do that. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and so those are the types you need. One common question is when to use which one. Well, if your piece of sheet music just says B diminished, it could mean that you should use a half diminished chord, and it could mean that you should use a diminished 7th chord. And the answer is which one depends on the context. So let's go back to our harmonized scale, for example. This is a harmonized scale in the key of C. And each of these can have Roman numerals over it. Like that's the 1 chord in the key of C, D minor is the 2 chord, E minor is the 3 chord, etc. That means that B diminished is the 7 chord. And so when it's being used in this context, you can, as we saw earlier, use this half diminished option because that's the one that fits the key. It adds an A note and that fits the key of C. Whereas if you were going to substitute a B diminished 7, that would add an A flat note, and that does not fit the key of C. So, but having said that, most of the time when it's not in this context where it's the 7th scale degree, this may sound a little complicated, but you would basically most of the time use a B diminished 7 to substitute for a B diminished. We're going to see an example in a minute of a song that uses both the half diminished and the diminished, so you can hear the different sounds of it. It's God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. But to summarize, usually the sheet music will tell you B diminished 7 or B half diminished. If it doesn't, then you have to either, if you're good at theory and you know that it's being used as a seventh chord in a key, then that's fine. But otherwise, you have to look at the melody and use your ear to make a decision on which one to use. Now, we're going to look at the Beach Boys, God Only Knows What I'd Be Without You. And there's a lot of complicated looking chords, but we're only going to focus on the diminished chord, the one circled in green, and the half diminished chord, the one circled in red. So if you don't know how to play D over A, just play D. If you don't know how to play B minor 6, just play B minor. If you don't know how to do F sharp 7, just play F sharp minor, etc. All right. And to make it easier on you, I've reinstated the diagrams for the two possible ways to play each chord. For C diminished over here on the 5th string, or C diminished 7 over here on the 6th string. Similarly, A half diminished off the 5th string and A half diminished off the 6th string. So I'm not going to sing the melody because of copyright infringement, but this is the chords. And here comes E over B. Here comes our C sharp diminished. Here comes our A sharp half diminished. So I just grabbed whichever one was convenient. So I happened to grab this one right here for C sharp diminished and this one right here for A sharp half diminished. But I could have easily chosen the other ones instead. It just depends on whichever one's closer and is more convenient to where you are at the moment. So that's a very short overview of half diminished and diminished. The only way to really learn it is to play lots of songs that have the minor 7 flat 5 and lots of songs that have the diminished chord. You can just do a quick Google search for songs that have those. And if you have a guitar teacher, then he or she hopefully has lots of sheet music, which we do here at Guitar Lesson Ithaca. We have tons of sheet music that you automatically have access to. So if you're looking to expand your chord vocabulary and you think that lessons is a good idea, it certainly speeds up everything like exponentially. Let me tell you, I've had many periods in my life where I've taken lessons and many periods where I haven't. And it's really night and day. So if you are interested in a free trial, you could contact us. You go to guitarlessonsithaca.com and you fill out the form, that click on the button that says tell us more about you, and then you fill out the form and answer questions about what you're looking to do on guitar. Or you can just call me directly. I'm the head teacher, Dennis Wing, 607-222-3166. And we look forward to seeing if a free trial is good for you. Hopefully this overview of half diminished and diminished wasn't too confusing. And let me know how you make out.